Got me feeling diamond wrist. We created something phenomenal, don't you agree? Let's get physical. Lights out, follow the noise. Maybe keep on dancing, you ain't gotta choose. Come on, let's get physical.
She looks metallic.
Though I can't quite recall overnight sensation.
Welcome to the shop, and in this episode we have Drag Race at its finest. This is the essence of Drag Race. This is why we love the show so much. Everything went right. And we have to acknowledge the fact that we had such a good episode in such a great season, because that is the result of the great work of many different people. From the casting producers who brought together an incredible cast, to the story producers who really put in the effort to develop organic storylines that felt genuine and authentic, to the editors who managed to translate all those storylines into visual media in a way that it's effective and, most importantly, it doesn't feel intrusive. Last but not least, all the queens themselves. And of course, the cherry on top, the return of a Drag Race legend, Laganja Estranja, for what has already become one of the best lip sync in the history of the show. This is Drag Race at its finest. This is proof that this is the best reality TV show of our time and the most influential queer franchise in history, and deservingly so. Welcome back home, RuPaul's Drag Race. You have been dearly missed. You have no idea how much you have been missed. In this episode, of course, there is still a little bit of shade here and there. There are some convenient choices, and I'm going to talk about those, of course, including something strange going on with the way Trinity is portrayed, how the resident queen of Puerto Vallarta's redemption storyline is being carried on so effectively, and of course, the Cryptiques. So, in general, overall, for me, all of these things that I'm going to mention during the review, I consider them an acceptable price. If what I get in the end is a season like this, an episode like this, I can accept a compromise. It's fine for me. This is not a documentary. It doesn't need to be 100% real, but it cannot be 99% fake. Of course, by the end of the review, we are going to have the confessional chart and the speculations as usual. Before we begin with the review, I have a correction to make from last video. Many people left a comment saying that Miss Piggy, and you're going to love this, especially if you're not from the US, is like a queer icon. This puppet is like the equivalent of a drag queen in their culture, and it's been that way for like decades. And based on that, my tone was unnecessarily pointed. Now, from where I come from, The Muppets, it's a show for kids. Nothing more, nothing less. And I know that it had this cultural importance. Yeah, probably I wouldn't have gone so hard on World of Wonder, but still I would have pointed out that it was quite convenient to choose exactly this queer icon among the dozens of others that they could have chosen. It's quite convenient, especially considering the pattern that they have shown over the years. So, some people have been quite nice about it, and it's okay, you don't have to necessarily agree with everything I say. I mean, my word is not gospel, and my opinion is not always 100% informed, but some people felt the need to be complete assholes about it. And to those people I have, seriously, I'm not trying to be sassy or anything, but I have a genuine question. Why do you even watch this show? I mean, how can this be entertaining for someone who is totally unable to put himself in the perspective of somebody else? This is something that you need if you want to understand what the hell we are doing here, because this is not like a fluffy review of RuPaul's Drag Race. This is a review of the editing, of the storylines, and how perceptions are manipulated. This show, it's something that requires you to think, to understand that you need to see things through somebody else's perspective. Like, it can be my perspective, but mostly is the perspective of the editors, the producers, and most importantly, the contestants, because don't forget, these queens invested a ton of money to go on Drag Race, knowing that it can backfire. They can get their career ruined, they can get death threats, they can get harassed. Some of them are actively triggered during filming, some are frustrated on purpose, some get unfair treatment, some get asked to change their character for Snatch Game, change the outfit for the runway, some are given fucked up feedback, and so on and so forth, until somebody at the end of the line finally snapped, and then they will be portrayed at their worst and become villains. I like doing this show. I like finding hidden things, and I like the idea of contributing to a healthier way to relate to reality television in general. Fill your hopes, enjoy the episode. When it's over, understand the difference between the person in real life and the persona that you see on television, especially when they're portrayed as villain. And in order to do that, it's mandatory to understand their point of view, the situation in which they were in, the information that was available to them, the emotion that they felt. So, case in point, Brita Filter. Back in season 12, we made an episode about what went on with Brita Filter, trying to explain her motivations, what was happening, yet everybody was eating her alive on social media. Now, in this precise moment, everybody finally sees Brita Filter. What we saw on her season was just a part of a much bigger picture. And now, finally, everybody sees her, but not before. She was threatened to be thrown under a train and overdosed because she couldn't take the pressure of the way she was being perceived. So, to all of those people who feel the need to be assholes, either to me or in the comment section to other people or to the queens when they go on their public page and they never contribute to any kind of conversation whatsoever, I want to say that your feedback is nor requested nor appreciated, and if you are 20 years late in developing theory of mind, maybe you might want to stick to those reviews whose only requirement is object permanence. End of my TED Talk. Let's begin with the review. Let's begin with this fucking review. We made it. We are back in the workroom and we are counting lipstick. And we found out basically who voted who, and that Trinity voted for Jara. Now, something extremely interesting happens in here. But before I talk to you about those things, I made a poll in which I asked you, do you think that Trinity K. Bonet is being portrayed as a villain or not? Arrow says it's weirdly a mix of both. They give her a villain edit and then immediately after make it seem very wise and empathic, and you hit the nail on the head. If I go to your votes, 51% voted yes, 49% voted no. You are almost exactly divided into two equal groups. And I don't think that this happened by chance. We are used to have villain edits, hero edits, sweet girls edits, redemption edit, narrator edits, and so on and so forth. With Trinity, something that happened already in season 13, but I didn't really notice in this way, is happening again. What do I mean by that? She has two opposite narratives that are going on at the same exact time. You really can see that the editors put in the effort to prove on one hand that she is a villain and prove on the other hand that she is not. And these two narratives go hand in hand, one after the other. In this scene, for example, Trinity starts to explain why she voted for Jara, but after she says this, she's immediately intercepted by a confessional from Kylie saying, no, I'm not buying it. After the confessionals, we are shown a throwback of Jara choosing her lipstick.
Jiggly struggled. Yada whipped her shit out.
I don't really buy it. I'm thinking that she picked Yada's lipstick because Yada picked her lipstick that first week.
So based on this, you would say, okay, she's saying something, the edit is proving her wrong, so Trinity is full of shit, she's a villain. And you might think, yes, but immediately after, Trinity is allowed to explain herself, and this didn't happen by chance, because we are seeing it. So the editor chose to show us this scene in which she explains herself in two different confessionals, in which she is allowed to speak to us, and she has a reaction shot as the one who is being misunderstood. These two things happen one after the other. Later on, we are going to go in detail about what exactly this means and why it's made like this. Moving on, it's a new day in the workroom, and three great things happen in this moment. Number one is the kind of challenge. The queens have to write commercials, and they have to do it in groups. Commercial challenges are some of my favorite challenges of Drag Race. They are just hilarious. The second thing that happens in here is that the queens are not assigned in groups by the producer. They have an almost random way of grouping them. They just say, you know, let's go from the tallest to the shortest, and you will be divided in this kind of groups. It's a compromise between assigning each and every one of them to a specific group and letting the queens choose whoever they want to have in the group. So I think this is a good compromise between having all of the power and having just some of the power, which is refreshing coming from World of Wonder. A third great thing is that the queens are allowed to write the script themselves. And this is a great choice because they know how to write stupid stuff that it's genuinely funny. They know the difference between something that is lighthearted and stupid and something else that it's simply idiotic. What do I mean by that? Well, stupid is like an exaggerated kind of comedy, you know? It's something that you camp it up, everyone is on the joke, and it requires a good concept. The reference must, you know, fit the situation. You have to have comedic timing. It's something in which you put a ton of effort because you have to understand, good comedy is difficult. Of course, these are all talented queens, so they make it look like it's effortless, but I can assure you it's really difficult. While idiotic is something that requires the audience to actually be brain damaged, to be enjoyed whatever they're being served. It's something that has no real concept, where the script is wrote without any kind of effort whatsoever by people who have zero sense of comedy. You have references thrown in there that made absolutely no sense. The characters are not developed. Case in point, the SheMZ acting challenges of All Stars 5, that was idiotic. This challenge here that you see is stupid, and stupid in the best ways. And this was another great choice for this episode. So, the queens are starting to prepare their scripts. You know, they are brainstorming idea, they are writing down characters, and in this moment, we have definite proof that Scarlet Envy is actually a gift to the world. And I can give you three solid proof of that. Number one, she is stupid. She is stupid in the best way. She doesn't even know what crunches are.
We're gonna start with some crunches.
That's not a crunch.
Well,
Crunches are this.
So what is this called?
Start with whatever this is.
Number two, she is supportive.
I'm pretty good at improv too. I can just kind of go with whatever you're kind of do. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Are you feeling overwhelmed? I'm sorry.
And number three, Scarlet can get the job done.
No D, men is too big.
We find out that Ginger's character was initially supposed to have his head photoshopped on Jen's body. So of course, I photoshopped Ginger's character on Jen's body, and I can tell you, it's mesmerizing. And we are introduced to the first act, remember this, the first act of the Resident Queen of Puerto Vallarta's redemption storyline. Now this storyline has been skillfully sewn in the fabric of the episode itself. It's seamless, it's believable, and it's masterfully done. It's been ages since I've seen a storyline done so well. It's a marvel of reality television. We are going to break it down. Now, in Act 1, we find out that the Resident Queen of Puerto Vallarta made a decision. While the queens are writing the script, brainstorming ideas, the edit makes this chit-chat look like it's something confusing, okay? In the subtext, it's instilling in the viewer the perception that they are confused.
And look at me now. It'll be my head on your body.
Where? Do you need a queen to bring the turkey for Thanksgiving and it's like me twerking with a turkey in my pants?
Or order in bulk, and then like the three of us could do something together.
That would be funny.
Yeah.
That's really
you know how they
good.
have like a little voice that comes in right after and it be real fast. It's like each queen comes with eyelashes and a tuck.
And immediately we're intercepted by a confessional from the Resident Queen of Puerto Vallarta saying that they should keep it simple, but she's not going to say anything because in season 11, people didn't like her because she talked too much, she was obnoxious, she took all the camera time. So she's telling us, the audience, that she is going to dial it back. Because now it's not about herself anymore. She's going to be a team player. And if the challenge requires to have everyone play 10 characters each for 45 seconds of commercial, then she's going to make it work. And this is Act 1. Be ready, because this is a story told in 6 acts. After this, we move to rehearsal, arguably one of the best parts of the episode. Why is it so amazing? Well, it looks like at some point they switched off the air conditioning and they started pumping nitrous oxide in the studio, because I have no idea what the fuck is going on. You have Trinity, who is compulsively twerking on a disgusting Pandora box. Scarlett, that doesn't understand the meaning of being a firstborn. Michelle started out of nowhere. Michelle started talking about going through menopause, and Eureka embraced her character so much that she broke the bed. Ginger is becoming this fucking half-naked man after being squirted on the face while wearing a fantasy robe. And Jen is explaining the purpose of fucking poppers. Now, you cannot tell me that this seems normal to you. This is not fucking... What the fuck is happening? This is not normal. I was living my best life. I was getting my life from all of it. I was like, please, more. This is so genuinely funny. This is so stupid. This is so real. This was a great moment in the whole episode. It was fantastic. I have no words to describe it, because everything it's done so well. The queens are, they're doing their job really well. The editors, they're doing their job well. The judges are actually helpful. Do you remember when I told you last season, the season before, and the season before, listen, acting challenges, they do a lot of them because they're easy to manipulate. It's easy to make everybody seem like shit if they want them to look like shit. They can do a ton of things. Apart from editing, the judges can simply give them fucked up feedback. Here, they're being actually helpful. They're helping Kylie by saying, listen, Kylie, keep your face up. Look at the camera. Stay in character. They're helping Scarlett because they're like, Scarlett, what are 3 firstborns? It's like 3 payments or your firstborn, They're being helpful. There is a moment in which Akira is completely struggling with her lines, and Michelle comes out and says, listen, try this other line. It's similar. Maybe it's easier for you. And it works. It works. I don't know what the fuck happened this episode. I'm happy about it. I'm not complaining. I'm just shocked. In all of this, while Akira is struggling, remember when I told you masterful editing, while Akira is struggling, we move to a shot of the resident queen of Puerto Vallarta saying, you got it, babe. We are shown her being supportive. And this introduces us to the second act of the resident queen of Puerto Vallarta's redemption storyline. In act number 2, we find out how she feels about her decision. During a confessional, we find out that she is scared because she gave away one of her lines to Akira's. She's scared of fading into the background. We have a scene in which we even have subtitles so that if you cannot hear her, at least you can read that she is scared. She is scared of going home because of the decision that she made. This is the second act, and as you see, it doesn't come out of nowhere. It's immediately relevant to what's happening in the episode, because we go from the queens rehearsing, to the judges giving feedback, to Silky being helpful, and then we continue her storyline. And it's done perfectly. This is how you do storylines on reality television. Now, I don't give a shit if it's real, if it's fake. I don't care about it. For 1 hour, I'm watching the show. I want to suspend my disbelief, and I want to believe. And if it's done like this, I believe. I am entertained. Moving on, we are going back to the workroom, where we find out that Raja O'Hara is actually a die-hard fan of Jake Yonsei. I'm sorry. I had to do it. I couldn't resist. I had to do it. I mean, no offense to anyone. Well, apart from the glasses. And of course, now that we're back in the workroom, we are also ready for a nice mirror moment. Do you have any idea who we can have a mirror moment with? Mirror moment, the resident queen. Yes, Coffee, it's the resident queen of Puerto Vallarta, because we are about to enter Act 3 of her redemption arc. In Act number 3, the resident queen gets to explain why she made her decision. While talking to 2 other queens who are being supportive of her and being intercepted by her own confessional, she explains that she has been second-guessing herself, that it was hard coming out of season 11 without nobody's love. She has worked as hard as she could, and she received a ton of aid from fans, from colleagues. She lost some gigs. So coming back to All Stars, she had a vision of how she wanted to look and how she wanted to be perceived, possibly in an opposite way of whatever happened in season 11. So in Act 3, we find out her motivations. Now, moving on, we have the redemption runway. I didn't have time to take screenshots of the runway. I didn't have time to, actually judge them, have some opinionated opinions, so I'm not going to review the runway. That's what I wanted to say. Moving on to the actual challenge. We have the first group, Kylie, Scarlett, and Eureka. Now, for me, they had the most difficult topic of all of them. You can make it funny, but the script was just okay. This is what I want to say. It was nothing over the moon. It was okay. I think Scarlett was definitely the best of the group. She was stupid. She had a pun after the other. She was in character the whole time, and she was living for her character. You can tell that she was having fun while she was doing this. So for me, she was the best of the group. Then we have Kylie, who looked very professional, but it wasn't really a developed character what she was having. She was just being sexy, which was done perfectly. I have nothing to say about that, but it was not really a developed character, and it was not very funny. To me, it flatlined. I'm sorry, I adore Kylie, but to me, it was a huge flop, this character. And then we have Eureka. Eureka had impressive makeup. I gotta commend Eureka on that. The makeup was impressive. But other than that, she was Eureka. She was loud. She was doing her thing. It didn't really work for me. What did work for me is that at some point she deep-throated a crucifix, which is offensive, it's blasphemous, and it totally works with me. I'm totally okay with it. I'm like, yes, great job. So for me, this group, and understand, you might have your opinions, I have mine, but for me, they were the group deserving of the bottom. Moving on to the second group, we have Trinity, Raja, Pandora, and Jara. I think that their challenge was much easier than what Kylie, Scarlett, and Eureka was served, but their script was really, really good. And I have the sneaking suspicion that Pandora wrote most of it. Now, Trinity for me is the best of the group. She's the real standout. She is funny, she's having the time of her life, she is camping it up, she knows how to act. For God's sake, Trinity knows how to act. Her character was completely believable to me. Now, Pandora did a good job, but she was almost edited out of the challenges. Then Raja did a good job as well for me. Jara was the worst of the group. For me, she was just loud. There was no character. I mean, for the way the challenge was framed, it kind of worked, but it wasn't really good for me. All in all, the group was safe. I know what you're thinking. Stand there, let me finish. We can talk about it later. Wait a moment. Because we have group 3. Ginger, Jen, Akira, and the resident queen of Puerto Vallarta. Now, their script, for me, was the one that was written the best. They had like 1,000 characters. All of those characters worked. They were written very well. It was funny, it was campy, it was stupid. It was perfection. It was really drag stupidity at its best. And among all of them, Ginger was just phenomenal. She had great timing. Her back and forth with Jen absolutely worked with me. She was funny. She was in character. She had different characters. She was just everything. Really, I went out of this episode with a renewed respect for Ginger. She really knows how to do comedy. Now, for me, the second best was the resident queen of Puerto Vallarta, and I know this is going to be a controversial opinion because she didn't have that many lines, but if I have to judge this in the same way in which we always judge any kind of comedy challenges, I thought that she brought incredible physical comedy. I thought that she, even though she didn't have many lines, physically, she did a great job. And that's not even that easy. Because you are just using your body. I mean, I thought that she did a good job. When she rolled on the floor, she slept on the chair, she gave face, she worked it. It worked for me. For me, she was the second funniest one. Then Jen did a good job, and I loved the undercover gay guy. That was done really well for me, because it really looked like, like someone who is obviously, a fag, but he's trying to hide it, the best he can. In the worst possible way. It worked. It was a whole concept. The worst in the group for me was Akira, but it's not that she was necessarily bad, it's just that her performance had ups and downs. The lines in which she was talking were actually not that great, but then she recovered very well during the funeral scene. When she was with Jen, and then you have the resident queen rolling on the floor, and it was, she was not necessarily bad. It was ups and downs. And for me, this group, based on all of these things, for me, they were the winners. Now, why didn't they win? Well, number one, because, my opinion is not law. But even if it was, Trinity's group had to win the challenge. Because that Laganja was going to come for the lip sync for your legacy, and it would have been perfect television to have Trinity versus Laganja. I know that, you know that, and this, again, for me, is an acceptable compromise. What I cannot accept is that they put Ginger, Jen, Akira, and the resident queen in the bottom. That is something that doesn't really sit right with me, because they didn't deserve to be in the bottom. Because when compared, Kylie, Scarlett, and Eureka as a group didn't do as much. They did a good job, but they didn't do as much of a good job as Ginger's group. So for me, they should have been in the bottom. Although, I completely agree, this is something that I've been saying for ages. If it's a group challenge, you need to judge them as a group. In good or bad, you need to judge them as a group, because when you have a group challenge, that challenge requires interactions between the different queens that are on the groups. There is a back and forth going on. You have to rely on each other. You have to rely on each other's timing. If it's a dance challenge, you also have to be coordinated. You cannot judge them as singular people. It's a group challenge. You judge them as groups, in good or bad. So this is something that for me was done right again, because I've been saying this for ages, and every time there was a group challenge, they were always judged individually, because of course it's easier to do whatever the fuck you want if you judge them individually. Now let's move on to the critique. First up is Kylie, and to Kylie they say that her look is elevated, which I completely agree with. She has an ease of performance. She felt in her skin. She was always on, and she was really fun. And no, she really didn't feel in her skin. This woman has a ton of talents. Acting, it's not really her best talent. And I'm really saying that with, the hand on my heart, because I love Kylie. But, she didn't feel in her skin. She felt super tense. She was not always on. She was as on as she could possibly be. And really fun is something else. But, they had to justify the fact that her group was not going to be in the bottom. To Scarlett, they loved her outfit, which means that they have taste. She looked like Sophia Loren, and she was enjoying herself. With this, I completely agree. Scarlett looked like one of those queens who was really having the time of her life in this challenge. And she was having the time of her life, so I was having the time of my life watching her. She was really top notch. And then Eureka saying that her look is elevated. Yeah, sure. She stole the commercial. Okay, she had timing. Yeah, she had timing. I will give her that. And then they say that her character had a story arc, and that storyline was hard to sell. And I'm like, there is no story arc there. There is a before and an after. There is a nothing in between. What are you talking about? That was not a story arc. The resident queen is getting a story arc. Eureka didn't have a story arc for her character. It's just as simple as that. Then to Jen, they say that her look is elevated, but her hair reminds them too much of a mature woman. And I was like, yes, but Jen also said that's what she was going for. So what's the problem with that? Maybe Michelle was trying to say it doesn't look good on you. Then get a pair of glasses because she looked stunning to me. Then Jen is a team player. But unfortunately, and please keep your attention, unfortunately, she didn't steal the show. And in this moment, I'm thinking,
You were making it about you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there was a Beyonce and everyone else type of situation.
You were showcasing yourself.
Not even 6 weeks ago, they told the contestant that he stole the show and he should have been a team player. And because of that, it was put in the bottom. Now, since Jen is Jen and we got a shit on Jen, then unfortunately Jen should have stole the show, but didn't steal it. And in addition to that, Ru didn't see the funk and humanity in her. What does it mean? Like, honestly, what does it mean? I don't see the funk and humanity. Just she was stiff? I don't know. They are really going out of their way to frustrate Jen. They feed her all of this bullshit feedback during the critiques. They're really mistreating her big time. And Jen is not happy about it because she went on social media and she posted this. And she's right. This is exactly what's happening on the show. And it's getting to her. And how can it not get to her? Because she's being portrayed like shit. And people are starting to be assholes to her on social media. So Jen is not in a good headspace at all. I agree with everything they say about Ginger. They didn't like the bodysuit, I didn't like it either. She was basically painting for the back of the room, which is true. Her highlights were completely off. But she is a committed actor, she had the best timing, and she knows how to deliver lines. And I completely agree with all of that. Next up is Akira. To Akira, they told her that her kaftan is a kaftan, but she struggled with her lines during rehearsal. She basically was not that much in character. They loved her performance, but wanted to see more. I didn't want to see more, and I didn't love her performance. She was just okay. And the resident queen of Puerto Vallarta, her look doesn't relate at all with the look that she was supposed to be redoing, but they don't give a shit about it. And I'm like, of course you don't give a shit. She has a redemption edit. Why would you point that out? I mean, we can shit on Jen and tell her that her hair makes her look too old, but, you know, if the resident queen fucks up the colors, it's completely fine. I mean, the dress is good. I like the dress, but, you know, at least keep the same color. Then she looks gorgeous. She's a showstopper, but unfortunately, her performance was not energetic. She did an okay job, and I'm like, no, she did a good job. What the hell are you saying? But they tell her there is a spark missing, and I'm like, great job seemingly suggesting lines to Michelle Visage, because that is cue for Act 4 of the Queen of Puerto Vallarta's redemption storyline. In Act 4, she opens up to everyone about why she is different. She says that it's been hard being in the competition. She feels like she has the weight of the world on her shoulders, and she's always being nervous during the competition. This next act is done well again because it doesn't pop out of nowhere. It's actually introduced by the Cryptiques themselves. I think it was a very smooth transition and it was convincing. If you don't know anything, you are completely into that storyline. And at this point, the queens go back to the workroom. It's time for the liberation and it's time for Untucked. We have Ginger that it's coming out and she's congratulating Jen on breaking her save streak. And this is edited like a shady, but I have the feeling that, you know, Ginger was joking. She was like, you know, trying to lift her up a little bit, you know, try to have a little bit of a laugh. I didn't see that as shady at all. And then we are introduced to the second ambivalent edit for Trinity. And this is going to be a mouthful. So in edit number 1, Trinity is a victim. You have Trinity coming out on a confessional complaining that all the bottom queens are already pleading their case. They didn't congratulate her, even though she was her first win ever, even though it's normal to come to the workroom and at least say congratulations to you. And the edit is confirming Trinity's perspective, because while she's saying all of these things, we are bombarded by cutscenes of the 4 queens pleading their case, as if they're almost talking on each other's.
Do y'all see me? I have never won a challenge before.
So, bitch, give a little girl some praise. But immediately they came in pleading their case.
And if y'all give me the opportunity to continue to be my absolute best here.
I was just so nervous to go that extra step.
There is absolutely nothing that I could have done. And go hit somebody else.
And this is clearly something done to confirm what Trinity is saying during the confessional. But at the same time, she's also a villain. Because after she explains in the workroom how she feels and why, at the same time, we have this shot of these two queens with a good edit that are bitch-facing her. They're like, what the hell are you saying? This makes no sense. This is what these shots tell to me. At this point, you might think, okay, Trinity is a villain, right? No. Trinity is actually a hero, because immediately after, we have Trinity giving a motivational speech, cue the emotional music, cue the reaction shots.
I need y'all to understand that because you're in the bottom, it does not make you a bottom bitch. It does not mean that your drag doesn't suffice.
And after this, she's talking to the queens, to the bottom queens, and she is encouraging all of them. So Trinity is not a villain, she's actually a hero. Or maybe not, because immediately after, the edit gives us another ambivalent message, that Trinity is a villain.
I'm a little nervous with Trinity because she will compliment me in one breath.
You're sickening. Like, acting-wise, there's nothing we can get you for, bitch.
And then kind of slap me in the face with the other.
Do you feel like a bottom?
I don't.
Okay, well then change your energy.
I'm sorry.
Which comes off, it really comes off as if she's showing Ginger the middle finger. So why the hell do they have this ambivalent edit for Trinity that it's absolutely done on purpose? Why are they feeding us two different opposite ways in which we can interpret this queen's behavior? By this point, I am so happy with this episode that the first thing that I thought was like, okay, this is the producers of Drag Race. It is their way of adding dimensionality to the characters, you know, make them pop out of the screen, create a conflict in the character like it happens with normal people, you know, it adds depth to the character. Things like this actually can make the show better, because believable characters are the central part of reality television. And then the cynical part of myself comes back out and tells me, no, you're being too positive about it. They're giving ambivalent edits because they are more effective in generating buzz on social media, because you have two different groups of people, one that will be on board with the first narrative, one that will be on board with the second narrative, that will continue to argue with each other about which one is right, because both of them as proof that what they are saying is correct, and this will generate buzz, and will generate buzz in a more acceptable way than just portraying a queen as a piece of shit on television and then having to take responsibility and accountability for treating a queen that way. So this is a better way to generate buzz on social media. And you know that buzz means visibility, and visibility means money. So this is why I think we are seeing the things that we are seeing with Trinity, because they are done on purpose. There is no doubt about that. The editing is very, very clear. So this is my explanation. If you have a better one, you're welcome to come forward, because, you know, this is a discussion. And after this moment, the moment we've been waiting for the whole review, because it's time to shit on Jan. You have the resident queen of Puerto Vallarta coming out and saying, and this is gaggy, this is really gaggy. She's like, yes, I agree, it's me, Akira, and Jen. And Jen is not even looking. From a moment to another, she is adjusting her dress. I don't know what she's doing. Maybe she's removing her shoes, but a fraction of a second later, she is bitch-facing. Out of nowhere. Nobody understands why, how she managed to bitch-face in a fraction of a second, but she is doing it.
I think that it'll be me, Akira, and Jan. It'll be me, Akira, and Jan.
Okay, bitch.
Okay.
Well, that's not to come at you or anything, but that's what...
But it is to come at me.
Well, we kind of got the same critique.
And I'm thinking, what the hell happened between these two scenes? And on top of that, of course, the cherry on top is that Eureka is like living her best life. And frankly, so am I. This kind of Untucked, it's not necessarily queens coming at each other's throat. It's nothing as bad as it was the Tamisha versus Candy fight. This kind of Untucked done like this, for me it's entertaining. So the resident queen explains that she is not necessarily coming from Jen. And Jen, out of nowhere, she answers, well, but it is kind of coming for me. And in all of this situation leads us immediately to act number 5 of the resident queen of Puerto Vallarta's redemption storyline, in which she gets validation for being a victim of everything that happened to her. She tells to Jen and to Ginger, but most importantly to us, the audience, that all that she is doing is just explaining the truth, like the fact that Jen wasn't necessarily that good, that Ginger's outfit wasn't that good, and that same truth is confirmed by the judge's critique. And at some point you have the resident queen saying, okay, but now I'm going to shut up, because if I talk too much, people will not like me.
Oh, I'm not trying to like campaign or anything, but I'm saying it because that is a harsh truth. But I'm gonna shut the hell up because talking too much is what got people not liking me.
It's not on her, it's on the people. And let me tell you, to all the people who go around saying, oh, Silky is obnoxious, Silky is this, Silky is that. Silky is not stupid, Silky is smart, especially in this scene. She knows which kind of edit she's going to get. She is playing for their edit, she is playing all of her cards right, and by the end of this episode, it's going to pay off big time. Now, next up, the lip sync for your life. And let me tell you, this was a treat. The lip sync was incredible. Incredible. It was mesmerizing to watch. I was literally glued to the screen. I felt the way I used to feel watching this show. When I fell in love with this show, I used to feel this way every time, all the time. This lip sync was just incredible. It was uplifting. It was the best moment in years of Drag Race. Ganja was mesmerizing. She was totally into the music. Her body was effortless. She was into every beat, you know. It was death drops and then splits and then jump spinning into death drops, and then she jumped from the floor, and then it was a reveal after reveal after reveal, and then another split. It's like she's giving it all. She's giving us the show of a lifetime. Thinking that they had to fuck up with the Cryptiques a little bit so that we could have this at the end, for me, it's an acceptable compromise. If you are manipulating the storylines a little bit for the purpose of giving us great television, then for me it's worth it. If you are doing it because you are a lazy bastard who had to decide the elimination order weeks before the show even started filming, then it's not acceptable. So, with Lagancho's win, we also find out who the group actually decided to send home. And this is cue for Act 6, the last act of the resident queen of Puerto Vallarta's redemption storyline. She's been sent home, she gives an emotional speech, she says that if she's getting a chance to come back to the competition, so she's going to come back with a renewed motivation, redemption is completely achieved, and with this moment, her story arc for the episode and for the season actually reaches an end. Now, it was a storyline that was done really well, as opposed to whatever they did with Candy Muse in season 13. There is simply no comparison, because the storyline is effective, it's not intrusive, it's done very well in the subtext on the episode. The subtext is the part of the show that conveys emotions without you not even realizing it. It's very organic, and this story is divided in 6 acts. It's a complete story from the beginning to the end. And in a way, it's a story that for me, it's also very compelling, because the message that she is sending is a very human message, because it's all about the struggle between being yourself and be what people expect you to be, and how to face the consequences of people not liking the way you are, that fear that comes with exposing yourself too much, maybe even coming to a point of disliking yourself, changing yourself, and feeling enticed to just stop being yourself, just put on a mask and it will work out. For me, that is something that resonates a lot, because, you know, even though we have like 200 people on the live stream and 1,000 regular viewers on the episode. I know how it feels when, you know, people shit on you. And I am a nobody. She is a very well-known public figure. Hundreds of thousands of people know who she is and can come back at her. So I cannot imagine that level. I can relate to it, but I cannot imagine how it feels. In a way, I can completely relate to that. Until I remember, what I'm watching on television right now was filmed last summer. 4 months afterwards, she went on vacation with Shangela Vanjie in the middle of a pandemic. So the storyline of the show, the way you behaved of the show, is asking me to have empathy toward you, your stories, your difficulties, and I'm this close to say yes, I want to do that. I feel that way. And then I remind myself, but Silky, where was your empathy in the middle of that pandemic when we were all supposed to stay home? To not put at risk the immunocompromised, the elderly. We have a whole generation of kids that's growing up without their grandparents. Where was your empathy for all of those people who couldn't receive proper medical care because the hospitals were overwhelmed, the staff were overworked? Where the fuck was your empathy for those who had to work to survive and had to work in dangerous environment? And where was all your empathy for all of us stuck at home for the sake of people that we don't even know, but just because that's the right social thing to do? And you know, if you watch the statistic, that in the past 2 years, the cases of depression and anxiety disorders went through the roof. Services like BetterHelp made a fortune because of what happened during the lockdown. So how the fuck can you ask me to have empathy for you when you are the first one who had none for all of those people? I'm a human being. I have limits of a human being. I don't have infinite amount of empathy to give. So personally, I prefer to give it to people who put in the real effort. Like Raja, for example. That it's not coming to me saying, I want to show you something else. It's coming to me saying, yes, I am a bitch. That's a part of the story. There is a bigger picture, please look at it. I am the way I am embracing it, I'm not hiding it. Or Jen, who is doing absolutely nothing wrong. Yet, she's being overwhelmed on social media. She didn't bully anyone, she didn't insult anyone. She just played the game wrong. I will save my empathy for all of those people. Silky, you will have my honesty, you will have my objectivity, but my empathy you will not have. Now, with that said, let's move on to the confessional chart and the speculation. As usual, if you don't want any possible spoilers, this is the moment that you should stop watching. So thanks for watching until now. If you would like to support the channel, we have a Patreon. If you want to stay for the speculations, stay for the speculations. Otherwise, I will see you back next Sunday or when the episode comes out. Let's see this confessional chart. As you can see, Trinity and the Resident Queen absolutely dominate the confessionals. Of course, you know about the Resident Queen already because she was carrying her own storyline, the whole 6 acts of the storyline. So I imagine that all of you were already expecting that we would see a ton of confessionals for her. We also have a ton of confessionals from Trinity. And the vast majority of those are narrating confessionals. This is not a good sign, because being the narrator of a season means that you will never get to the top, but for me it's too soon to think that Trinity is the narrator, mostly because of the ambivalent edit that she has, and mostly because I have no idea what the hell it means. Not yet. I have speculations, but I don't know what it means. So, for me, she still have a shot at the top 4. Trinity has a role in this season. Like, I think she will definitely not go home the next episode. For me, it's out of the question. Her edit has been on the rise. Her track record has been on the rise. I don't know if what I'm seeing is enough to like knock it down and say, oh yes, she's definitely going to be top 4. But for the amount of editing that's been done around her character, I would be really surprised if she goes home the next couple of episodes. Apart from the Resident Queen and Trinity, everybody else basically faded in the background. Look at that. I mean, best case scenario, they have a 1/6 of Trinity's confessional time. Best case scenario. Worst case scenario, they don't even have a 1/10. That's how much everybody else faded in the background, because this episode was all about keeping your eye on Trinity and keeping your eyes on the resident queen. Everybody else was unimportant, at least in the subtext. For me, Scarlet is definitely getting jammed. Now, next up we have Pandora Box. Pandora stopped disappearing in this episode, which can be a sign that her edit is indeed rising, but with Pandora we haven't seen that much yet. She had that first good high placement in the first episode, and then she started disappearing a little bit. So for me, with Pandora, I only see two possible alternatives. Either she's getting a kind of silent assassin kind of edit, which means that her edit needs to rise big time the next episode already. No more 25 seconds of confessionals, it needs to go at least to a minute and a half, at least. Or she will just continue to fade in the background. There is no middle way with her, there is no uncertainty. It's one way or the other way. Kylie is the second one that has an edit very similar to Pandora. She is my second candidate for a kind of silent assassin kind of edit, and to me, at least from a point of view of being good publicity, she is definitely going to be on the top 4. If they did that for Gottmik, they're definitely going to do it for Kylie. She really is the best candidate for the top 4, along with Raja. Raja is continuing her redemption story arc with an incredible track record. Raja is doing great, and they are putting a ton of effort on her edit. They're giving her space to explain herself. They're giving her space to show humanity through other people. They are building a whole and well-rounded character. I would be very surprised if Raja would be eliminated, because then again, you don't put that much effort for someone that you're not going to keep along for such a long time. Now, as I said last time, going next to Ginger, if they're going to go for the diversity top 4, and I think they are going to, Ginger to me is the best candidate as the big girl. Because, I mean, Eureka, you're funny, but Ginger just has that, that's something more, that professionalism, that way of being hilarious in a very smart way. Eureka, yes, she's hilarious as well, but she's funny in a spontaneous way, while Ginger knows how to construct comedy. She knows the recipe and she's good at it. Having her not winning this challenge was not a good sign, but maybe it was due to the fact that passing on the opportunity of having Trinity versus Laganja, it was not acceptable. Next up we have Akira, and Akira is spiraling to the bottom. If you ask me, she's probably going to go home. Based on challenge and overall performance, I think she was the one who deserved to go home this episode, not the resident queen. Because for me, the resident queen did a fantastic job in the challenge. It's very difficult to predict who goes home in an all-star season because there are so many different variables. I'm not even trying to predict who's going home. But if you ask me, I seriously see Akira going home like tomorrow. Then we have Jara. Jara, of course, had to be knocked down from episode 1, because God forbid that you think that she actually has a shot to the top. So they knocked her down. She was already in the bottom in episode 2. This episode that happened didn't do her any favor. She was portrayed basically as out of her mind. I don't think at this point she has any chances left. Moving on to Jen. Whether she likes it or not, she is the villain of the season. Either she will embrace her villain edit, and if she does, she could have a shot to the top 4 as a villain, because nobody else in this set of queens that you see is going to be portrayed as a villain. Maybe Trinity, maybe, but I wouldn't be so certain about it. With Jen, there is no ambivalence whatsoever. They shit on Jen every chance they get. It looks to me like they're trying to trigger her every step of the way. If she embraces the villain edit, she will do well. If she doesn't, she will go home. Like at this point, really, like I said last time, I hope Jen goes home. Make it stop. It's been enough. And last but not least, we have Eureka. I don't think Eureka has any chances to go to the top 4. We already have a big girl. I don't dislike Eureka. It's not like, oh, she's my favorite queen. I enjoy her. It's just that when I put her next to Ginger, I'm like, no way. There is no way. No way. No, not a chance. Not a chance. No. No. Her edit is just too bland. The runways are like clusters. No, I don't see at all Eureka in the top. And that was it for this episode. As usual, a special thanks to our patrons for supporting the channel, and I will see you next time.